Good afternoon. It is 4:40 p.m. It is Monday afternoon. It is June the 23rd, and I have been working on my newsletter today. And so, yeah, I was thinking about, contacting businesses. And like I said, I'm a little reluctant to do that, mainly because of, the issues relating to my targeting. I do understand that the churches have been participating in getting my name eliminated into from data banks that was stating me as blacklisted. Hopefully they have also did that for other people, but like I said, I had to advocate for myself. I don't think a lot of people really knew exactly how deep this issue was and who exactly was responsible for the quirks that were going on. Now, this morning, like I said, I started off thinking, okay, I should contact some of the people on that list or whatever. And really, like I said, it's not something that I enjoy doing. I do not like communicating with other people. And the reason why is because, I understand the toxicity that was put in the air by church people. Okay. Now, today, I was, working on my newsletter. And, a lot of times when I work and I'm writing, a lot of thoughts just keep coming to mind. I am starting to make peace with this issue of, I needed to know exactly what happened. That was so important to me. Like, I know that when I left Murray Family Farms, it almost felt like I had, like somebody was putting knots in my brain. And the reason why is because I kept thinking, okay, I understood Steve Murray was behind it. I did not think that I deserved any of that. I did not think that I had deserved any of that. And I do understand a lot of it was the one sided competition that Steve Murray participated in. And yes, this whole issue was funded and by churches, okay? They were trying to compete against my educational background versus theirs, okay? And I've always held true to the fact that I did not necessarily believe that college education equated to success or equated to intelligence. However, this was not something I don't believe I actually started articulating this until I started making my videos. Okay, now I know that there was a lot of arrogance. I would say a lot of arrogance from people who went through the institution of regular schools, and I know that the school system. It seems as though not just private schools, but it also seems as though churches had an interest even in public type schools, regular college campuses that were not necessarily relating to private owned religious institution education. I think it was just the fact that they were, there's a lot of it's business. Okay, basically colleges are at the end of the day a business. Okay, so we had a lot of people who wanted to prove me wrong. A lot of people wanted to label me as stupid. Even mind you, even though everything that I did over at Murray Family Farms Place showed them that I was not stupid. I was somebody who was constantly getting my work stolen from, and I have come to understand that the mobbings that have been occurring have been performed by various Christian organizations. In my case, I think I was heavily targeted by Mormons, but I do know that a lot of religions have collaborated together. Like I mentioned, my sons, I call him my son's biological grandmother, okay, which really, to be simplified, I could say my son's grandmother, okay, but like I said, I never uh, solidified any ties. What I mean by that is I never even put these people on the birth certificate. Okay, when I became pregnant, I really did. I kept thinking, okay, I understand that they had very negative views on race. Okay, and so I felt as though it's not a good idea for them to have any sort of relationship with with my son. And I understand that the church did a lot of things behind the scenes that I do not appreciate. Okay, I believe that they approached my son with this sort of nonsensical dogma while he was a minor. And number one, while my son was a minor, now my son can do whatever he wants to. I respect the law, okay? So my son was indoctrinated, I believe, sometime when he was a young kid, okay? So this has been going on for a very, very long time. And this was done by the church, okay? And like I said, I know that there's a lot of corruption that could occur in the church because at the end of the day, religions were created and they are run by humans, okay? So today, a couple of days ago, I had mentioned one of Elon Musk's mothers of his children, And I could not think of this girl's name. I just remember a few months ago, I was like, looking at things either on Facebook or something, and I had stumbled upon this girl, and I saw that there was this Elon Musk, one of the mothers of Elon Musk's children. Okay. And I remember, she stood out in my mind. What made her stand out in my mind is the combination. Like, how sometimes you look at people. Yes, I look at people. Because, like, if I was, like, running some sort of agency or an actor type thing or models or something, there's certain faces that I would think, okay, I would use this person. I would use this person. So I kept thinking, oh, yeah, I always thought that, the dark hair and the blue eyes were, quite significant. So I remember thinking about her and something flashed through my mind. Okay, so a few days ago, I had mentioned that I had woke up and her face was just like sitting around in my face, I was thinking about her, right? So I've come to realize that, my targeting was indeed a combination of this issue of relating to cloning, okay? And I do believe that there were some key players that were involved in this because they were targeting me because of my looks. Their religious doctrines, were not really somebody who was comfortable with women, expressing themselves the same way that I do. Okay, mainly because I have Egyptian roots apparently, and I do believe that these sort of behaviors and ideas are they're deeply embedded in your DNA. Okay, so like when I was younger, I pretty much came out of whatever womb or incubator wanting to wear things like eyeliner. Okay, but this is scientific research. If you really think about it, it's like we are hardwired for certain things. This is one of the reasons why. Now, I'm not gay, and I don't identify with any sort of homosexual, what do you call it, group or anything like that. Okay, like some people are really into what do you call it, the gay and lesbian community and stuff like that. I don't identify with any of that. Okay, because as far as I know, when I came out of the incubator or my mother's womb, even though she's not really my mother, but I was a girl. Okay, but I do believe that through my intuitive messages that I performed this morning, I do believe that this cloning facility, because I may have been pretty effeminate, and they, created me to be a woman in this life as form of punishment. Okay. Now, a lot of times, I do think that we are very much behind the times when it comes to understanding human behavior and also, each other on terms of, race, things that relate to race. And when you think about it, things that carry over from past lives or even just our genetic codes. Okay. So like, back in the days of CB Braganza, I would say, you think people are ignorant today. I mean, people have always been ignorant, okay? And so, people back in C.B. Braganza's time were very taken aback probably by his personality, his behavior, because it threatened their white supremacy, okay? It threatened white supremacy. So back then, he was probably very mistreated. Hang on a second. Okay, I'm back. So anyway, yeah, throughout the course of time, I know that, especially I would say relations between black and white people, it's always been kind of strained, mainly because of the issue of white supremacy, as well as just not understanding. It's like there's certain things, like I said, we are hardwired to be who we are. You know what I mean? We're hardwired to be who we are. That goes for mannerisms, certain tastes that we like, preferences, what makes us comfortable. And I think a lot of times when we're around white people, they expect or put demands on us that just do not go against our nature. Okay, in this sense, I believe that they were bullying me because I wear nice clothes. Okay, I don't wear like expensive clothes, but yeah, I like to be color coordinated. But that doesn't necessarily relate to a black thing. But okay, in my case, because I'm Egyptian, I think it does. It seems like it's been a part of my life in every life. Okay. But when it comes to other women who have an interest in things like clothes, fashion, arts, designs, stuff like that, for some people that's just their preference. It's part of their personality. And I understand that I am not a part of the church. And see, I think a lot of times churches want to indoctrinate people to go against something that's naturally within them. Okay, and I think I've expressed my feeling on how I know that throughout the course of Dominion theology, where we have, like, for example, Mormons that go to different countries and indoctrinate people of different areas into a religious belief system that is not really comfortable for who they are. You know what I mean? That's asking a lot for people. But I understand that this was a thing that related to world domination. Um, so, I didn't realize how big it was, but I do see that it's bigger than just my family, bigger than just me being related to a soul tribe. This was actually people interested in cloning. And I do believe when I mentioned Elon Musk's wife, or should I say the bearer of children for him, I didn't even know this girl's name. I just found out her name was Siobhan today. Um, Siobhan? 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 I think I hope pronounced her name. Okay, see, I don't really get involved into the celebrity world. Okay, like I'll see people really think that I don't have a lot of interest. I find everything around me very disturbing. Okay, and for good reason. I feel as though this situation is extremely disturbing because I was targeted and trafficked by church groups. Now, this church group, is associated with this, I believe, Neuralink, which is a company that is interested in researching things like telepathy. I think it's, putting two and two together. I have been in contact with Elon Musk in the last few months. And don't get me wrong, I like Elon, but see, Elon needs to understand something. I am somebody who has dealt with human trafficking, fake friends, and all this sort of stuff. So if either Elon Musk has a sincere interest in having a friendship with me, then I think that's wonderful. Okay, but if he's just trying to be around me so that he can somehow fuel, what do you call it, Neuralink with some sort of brain patterns or some weird shit with my brain, I'm sorry, I don't think that's going to work. Okay, I truly am interested in being his friend. However, one thing people need to understand: when you are a victim of human trafficking and you've been a victim of lifelong targeting, that means people coming into your life, just out of the blue. They're usually staged people. So I have to be careful. I have to be careful. I have my guards up with everybody, okay? And the reason why is because we dealt with something relating to severe indoctrination. Indoctrination to the point of where the brainwashing manifested into creating plots to kill people, blacklisting, bullying, this sort of stuff. So I have to be careful. And like I said, even if he is a nice person, okay, I believe that he has been either through his religion, through his family upbringing, there's a certain kind of individuals that he has only been exposed to. Okay, there's a certain behavior pattern that he's used to he's used to having, just like the majority of people are. Like I said, I have extremely high standards, okay, but my standards are always coincide with the law. And I understand that most people have been exposed to this sort of mindset, meaning like using tactics of malif. I'm not saying that Elon's doing this, okay, because I do not know. He and I have spent zero time together other than communicating via text message. But I understand that this is what this whole group or this cabal is like. This is their behavior. Everything that they do, every encounter that I've had with these people that are associated with this group, this is exactly what I've experienced from these people. So there's a good chance that Elon very may well be a decent person, but he might have certain traits that could become highly problematic. Okay, and that's a concern of mine. Okay, I anytime you deal with things like brainwashing, cult behavior, and yes, I'm bold enough to say that the majority of people were brainwashed by a cult. Okay, the very fact that they made this a big issue, they made me out to be a villain in all the churches. Okay. Now, meanwhile, I had no idea about cloning. I mean, how common it was to the church. I had no idea. I mean, I understood about cloning, okay, but I'm just now recently coming to understand and putting the connection together between the Cabbage Patch reset, those babies from the reset time period, and coming to the as Maria Gordon. Okay. Before that, like I said, I thought, my family was just, bullying me because I worked at Mannery Family Farms and had a decent job or something. I understand now, it's deeper than that. Okay. So yeah, you know what I mean? This has taken so much out of me. But I feel as though I needed to know because it's getting to the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is, of course, this idea of cloning, this idea of, I don't know exactly what Neuralink was trying to do, but I do believe that they were interested in the fact that I had my apparition and then the fact that I took care of myself. Okay. And I think that they were just interested in bullying me for that reason. I'm talking a little bit about this in my newsletter, and I realize how burnt out I am on this subject. Meaning, like, I am burnt out of the point of where I honestly feel as though that I could never feel any sort of emotion about certain things anymore. Like, what I'm saying is, I don't feel like I'm ever going to be impressed by anything anymore. I just feel like I feel dead. Like, who cares? Like, when it comes to me interacting with other people, I don't know what to think. I just feel like, is everybody sick in the head? Because this right here is sick in the head. But I understand about indoctrination, and I do understand that the education system has been omitting things, or eliminating things, or ignoring things, or perhaps ignoring these sort of things so that they can continue to perpetuate a certain agenda. So I'm talking, like I said, I'm talking about this a little bit more in the newsletter, and then I kind of want to move on from that subject. And the reason why I'm mentioning this Siobhan Zealous girl is because, like I said, she popped into my mind. I am in no way trying to attack her. And just because I have an interest in Elon Musk does not mean that I'm trying to be in any way a competitor of hers or anything like that. I'm very open-minded. I do understand things like polygamy. No, I do not want to be in a polygamous relationship. I'm just basically saying that she held a piece of the puzzle to my issue. Okay? She is obviously, now, like I said, if she is not a victim of human trafficking, right, then she can easily explain this away, right? But if she is, then she needs to come to that understanding and make some decisions for her personal life, okay? Now, I know that this whole group that I was associated with that I didn't even know, right? Now, the end result is where I'm at now. I'm right here now, and I'm like dealing with, yeah, I'm dealing with trauma. I'm also dealing with burnout because, there's certain things that I have found out that to me has just left me feeling like, man, I've lost a lot of respect for people. I've lost a lot of respect for people. Religious wise, I do get the feeling that, religions do understand my point of view. Now, there's some people that are still kind of mad about it, but as a group, everybody knows I did nothing wrong. And when you look at this issue, I'm a victim. The church was in violation. Okay, the church was in violation. Um, the issue is that my father's apparition is still being seen on camera, and I think they were trying to be in some sort of power struggle with me. Like I said, all of this is new to me. Like, this is all new. I mean, I knew about my father's apparition in the last few months, okay? And like I said, my newsletters are revealing stuff slowly but surely and giving me ideas. Like, it's helping me heal, okay? Because I know that these people who call themselves Christian have never given me the formal closure that I deserve, okay? And why? Because I feel as though that's a little cowardice on their part, but let this be a lesson to you, okay? When you cause somebody harm, it is important that you take accountability for that, okay? It's for that person's healing. I can heal on my own, but there's always going to be, this feeling of me never being able to trust churches again, me being very uncomfortable around white people, and then I'm also going to have certain other feelings when it relates to people in general. Why? Because I never had proper closure. Everybody wanted to cover up their mistake, okay? And they were willing to allow me to suffer for what they did. And the reason why is because in their deranged mind, it was because they thought of me as somebody who looked nice. Okay, do you understand how mentally warped that is? That's warped. That is very warped, okay? Now, like I said, I understand the C.B. Berganza's issues of his clothes and his personal choices. Going back to C.B. Berganza, C.B. Berganza has always been somebody who was related to, I guess, the Egyptian extravagances, that some people would look at, but that's completely normal to me. Now, I get this message that I should continue sending my fundraiser throughout the state of California. It is very tiring having to call people. I would say that the damage done from being a victim of gang stalking is very traumatizing. Okay, mind you, these people were chasing me for a very long time, and I kept telling them, please knock it off. They felt entitled. They were like working with my biological family and my biological and adopted all these people, and I'm very unhappy with what happened. Okay, I felt as though they were using force a little too much. Okay, and to the point of where this is where I am now, and it was because of me being. We had totally different viewpoints. Totally different viewpoints. Okay, now I understand that people who were into, like, for example. Okay, King Solomon. Okay, King Solomon was actually of Egyptian origin. Okay, he was an Egyptian origin, And I do understand that the Bible was whitewashed. Okay, it's true. Okay, and I'm sure even the Vatican and all these other people know it. Okay, but people do these sort of things. Okay, just like when I was little, my mom, we had a black Santa Claus, and I knew that people made fun of us for having a black Santa Claus. But you do your history, Saint Nick was black. Okay, and I'm not. I understand. People have their issues. Okay, people have their issues. I'm just sorry that I got sucked up into it. I would have. I never wanted to be sucked up in this issue. Never, 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 never. Like I said, I remember hearing these issues being brought up about the black people being, the Egyptians were black and blah 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 when I was a kid. And honestly, I used to, like I said, I always had this interesting attitude about it. It's like I always looked at myself as an individual. Okay, that's not in any way of me downplaying the magnificent things that Egyptians are able to do and the admiration. See, the thing is, white people admire Egyptian people. They do. Okay, because I'm looking at some of the history, some of the issues relating to Freemasonry, a lot of the issues relating to occult magic, secret societies. A lot of it's built upon Egyptian things. Okay, so I understand that they were they wanted to compete against me, but see, it was like what makes it a hate crime is, number one, I was never flaunting it because I had no idea I was it. Do you understand? Like, I had no idea I was Egyptian. Or like, I had no idea that sort of stuff. And it's kind of cool to know, but at the same time, I'm very burnt out with the whole issue. I'm burnt out. Why? Because at the end of it, it blurs all these lines together. Like, it affected the way that I saw certain people. It affected the way that I saw certain people. For example, some of the celebrities that when I was younger. Now, I've never been into like celebrity worship, okay? But I had a lot of respect for, certain band members. I had a lot of respect for certain people, right? Because, I thought that they were one way, but they were actually just, associated with this. Should I call it a terrorist group or something? It's very strange to me. Okay, it really is, and it disturbed me. Okay, so this whole awakening, and yes, I'm going to call it an awakening. Why? Because it's an awakening if you get a message in your head, right, that you're Prince Alamehu, just out of the blue. Okay, when I asked the question, like, okay, when I found out I was a clone, like, who am I? And then I remember seeing Prince Alamehu months before that. I came to understand who I was through having an awakening, a spiritual awakening. Okay, and this is what a lot of people who are clones end up having, especially people who never knew that they were clones. Okay, and they come to this realization. Okay, and this is really what's going on around me, and everything that I came to understand, I was seeing things how they really were. You know what I mean? How they really were. So this is one of the reasons why I don't like getting fixated on certain people. Okay, some people say hi to me, and I just say hi to them back. I really have gotten to the point of where if I feel like I want to reach or understand people, I feel like I generally come out disappointed because I do understand that people have been indoctrinated with bad information their entire life, and there was reasons why is because it was all related to the church as well as the elimination of certain information. Okay, I had noticed in like I would say a little bit after I left Marie Family Farms place, those discrimination laws that were usually posted on the wall, that those were no longer there. I had noticed that, and I started thinking, I know that these laws are still on the books because as of today, those laws are still on the books for federal as well as state, right? But what they did was they eliminated the DEI initiative. See, now, I'm sorry, but I'm just going to come out and say it. And when I say that the churches were evil in this initiative, they cannot change that fact. They cannot sit here and say that they were not. They can't. Okay? Does it make sense? Why in the world would anyone of color support Christianity when it has that sort of racial leaning? It's very strange to me. Okay? I do understand they were attacking me because I will never get married. I was running from the very abusive people. You guys are abusive. Okay, that's all I'm saying. You guys are abusive. And the reason why I never got married is because I really didn't like how the kind of behavior that you make people, the people that you create. Okay, your indoctrination, I do not believe in it, and I think it's wrong. And it is wrong. You know what I mean? I know that you also, you used the girls behind me, to bully me. Possibly even Siobhan probably bullied me. I don't know. You know what I mean? She probably thought, well, what's wrong with her? Doesn't she want to be a part of what we're doing or whatever? And the answer is no, I don't. I don't want to be a part of, like, people cloning me or wanting to use my intellectual abilities on some sort of project, or I do not want to have any more offspring on this earth. No, I don't. I do not want to, and the reason why is because this particular the world is evil. Okay, even though I'm sitting here talking about the new earth and all this other stuff, the reason why is because it is run poorly. Okay, and even though you could put things in place. Okay, like you could try to make it as good as you can. There is a certain behavioral trait that seems to be exhibited. No offense to the white race, that I know good and well that if you were to clear off all the evil people, they would have it back is in the evil state that it was all over again. May I remind you, we've already had several resets before this one. Okay? When I'm talking about resets is like, some people die, some people get detained, and then they, bring people, put people away, and then they create new ones, and then try to put other people in mental institutions, and then they try to, you know what I'm talking about? Rebuilding the population is what I'm talking about, okay? It's been done before. And what happens is the same old, same old, same old, same old. You know what I mean? So we can't get rid of evil, okay? So the only way you can get rid of evil is you regulate it. You regulate it, meaning like you have to have things like law enforcement in place. You have to be able to identify what exactly is illegal. And see, it's this issue that I feel as though I've gotten a lot of flack from. And no one's told me this, is what I pick up on intuitively. Because there's a lot of people who feel threatened by, adults saying, hey, I'm taking my life back. I'm legally taking my life back. For example, people who are victims of human trafficking. In my case, like this whole issue with the traffickers, the church thing, and the cloning thing, that, I am not down with cloning. I don't believe in it. Okay, that's me. Okay, but do I understand that other generations are relying on it? You know what I mean? It's fine. I mean, that's great. Why not do that if that's what you want to do? But I don't believe in it. Okay, why? Because it's like it's I understand the reason why they were created is because, like, for example, burden babies. A lot of burden babies were misunderstood, meaning they may have been born in a time, or maybe even a country, maybe where Christianity was not either preached to them, or maybe they preferred just not to. They wanted to be in their own religion or whatever, and so they wanted to terrorize people and make them bully them so that they could acknowledge their religious structure. When you look at it from a more civilized perspective, they didn't do anything wrong. Okay, they had a right to not want to be a part of the religion. And considering the tactics that were used of bullying people, of course not. So then we have the United States that's supposed to be far more superior in ways of being civilized, but they still wanted to work underground. And this is not me criticizing churches. It is me basically using this method of relieving myself because it has been very traumatizing, okay? The church has made me lose faith in mankind completely. It has made me lose faith in mankind completely because all I've seen from people who go to church is evil. Is evil. And like I said, that this is something that it's just it is the way it is. So the only thing that really matters to me in my life is my world. That's it. Okay, that's the only, and I will say that has been very limited. It has affected my ability to think kindly of a lot of people, and that's terrible. But I also am aware of the fact that a lot of people have been indoctrinated based off of these people and their wicked plans. What else I want to say? So, what else is going on? So I know my son has been, he's been very kind to take care of me, and I'm very, very grateful for that. But like I said, I've always been somebody who believes in self-sufficiency. You know what I mean? And what I hate about it is I had to start making videos and start advocating for myself, because no one else would do it. And no one really had the ability to do it because a lot of people didn't understand exactly what was wrong because they were so used to being indoctrinated that they normalized this sort of stuff. Okay. But yeah, and I know the things that I believe. Okay, like I believe very much in my viewpoints, right? And I've never wanted to make a big issue of how I felt or how I believed because I didn't think I had to. I was living here in the United States, okay? But being a targeted individual, I had to clarify some things. I understood that people were holding it against me that I didn't want to get married, right? No, I have been, I have been on my own for a very long time, okay? And most of the people that I encounter are, of course, the people that they send to you, and these people are from church, okay? And also, if when it comes to the church mentality, I would be very much abused, okay? And I understand that my son has been taking care of me, and I do appreciate it. But this is my goal is to have my ability to move on so that my son could have a decent life. The church robbed me of my life. Okay, they robbed me of my life on the American soil. This is one of the reasons why I resent them. Okay, personally, I personally think religion should be abolished. I mean, like, I really think it should be destroyed because I do not believe that it has produced anything of any quality in society. Um, the message I'm getting is yes, in my newsletter, I am making the connection of the corporate world as well as the Christian world, just much like we see in things relating to organizations like what I was referring to when I was speaking of Sharon. I hope I'm pronouncing Sharon. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. And it's not that I'm being insensitive. I'm not. It's just that I'm somebody who doesn't really pay attention to names because I don't really feel as though I should have that much of engagement on the outside world. Okay, it didn't make a whole lot of interest in what do you call effort to make an interest into my life only for the purpose of competition. I've only received abuse from the outside world, so it's not really important for me to understand or remember what people's names are. And this is not me being a bitch or anything. It's just that what else can you expect? Okay, so it was just another person that wanted to stick it to Maria for reasons that she really can't explain when you look at it from a legal perspective. Okay, but really, I know that there was a competition about the education system and playing a game with my life, trivializing my need of survival, and that's what it was. You know what I mean? But no, I am not somebody who. I mean, I understand that the religions, a lot of religions think that look at cloning as a form of immortality, an opportunity to live forever, such as some of the UFO type related religions, as well as like Charles Taze Russell, um, which identify with Jehovah's Witnesses, which are part of the Christian denomination. Okay, and I have to say, I do give credit to these Nazis who were able to utilize this kind of technology that was basically from aliens. However, these aliens did not have, I don't think they had proper judgment. Okay, now this is not me, because like I said, to create a duplicate of a human being or a carbon copy of a human being, and also when you think about the power of being able to transfer a soul, that is impressive. Unfortunately, I do not believe that this technology has been used for the best. Okay, a lot of exploitation. So yes, I am talking about this in my newsletter, and hopefully, as we go on, I would like to move on. Okay, meaning like I know that my old perps, I get the intuitive message that a lot of my old perps who went against me are miserable. And yes, I know a lot of people were affected by this. Okay. Once again, I'm touching on the subject of them bragging about their education. Them bragging about their education. And like I said, I did not bring any of this onto myself. Okay. I really resent all the things that happened to me. The years of the abuse. And yes, it's abuse. It's abuse to come into somebody's place of work and harass them in the way that they do, or ask me questions relating to my hair, asking me questions as to why I'm wearing certain things, the intrusion of never having any true relationships except for people that they send to you. I honestly think that when I speak to the church in general, I honestly think that they need to change some of their views. That's for me. Here's the thing: you need to leave people who are not interested in church alone. Okay. When it comes to your members, I'm just going to say that it seems like that it needs to change. Okay. Now, I can't make you change. I can't make you change. Although I do know a lot of the churches do acknowledge me as the savior. And this is maybe one of the reasons why many perps committed suicide, due to the humiliation. And also, white people tend to have a fear that just because a black person is in charge, that they feel as though they're going to be threatened. Okay, they feel threatened by that. Okay, and this is something that I have seen my entire life. Mind you, okay, what they're actually doing is they are projecting, because I will tell you, throughout my life, as meek as I am, with holding my Hello Kitty doll or my little knickknacks or whatever, I'm a very, I would say that I'm a very mild person. But I do know throughout the years, when white people have the opportunity to abuse me, right? When they were in situations or positions of power, they themselves use it to abuse. So they naturally assume that I'm like that. I ain't nothing like you guys. I am nothing like you guys. Nothing. Okay? It never occurred to me to do anything inhumane like that. It's not in me to sit here and harass people, to bully people, to force my views on anybody. But yet you always assume that black people are going to do that to you, or somebody other race is going to do that to you. And the reason why you do that is because this is all you do. That's all you do. Okay? And I'm just telling you because, obviously I've never done anything like that. Okay? But it's funny how things, I know there's meetings going on about me. I do have fans, and people are willing to pay for my thing. Like I said, I'm exhausted. It's not easy having to call all these people. It just isn't. See, these people affected my ability to live. And so I'm sitting here. This is one of the reasons why I deserve compensation. Why? Because I missed out in years where I could have been working at a job where I could be consistently paid into retirement. And yes, it is important. Okay, I know that, throughout the years, Mormons and groups like this used to terrorize my father. Like I gave the example of my father purchasing a vehicle 10 years after he purchased his other vehicle, because my sister was, got her driver's license, and she needed to drive to beauty school because she was going to beauty school, and she also had to do family errands, right? We had, my father getting upset because he knew he was going to get badgered by this white racist Mormon group, right? Same thing, and it's like, do you guys realize, I understand some of these people have not acknowledged laws. They may have stuck with church doctrines and maybe leaders within their certain organizations. Let's just say, for example, these people may have Ku Klux Klan leanings, right? Can you imagine being behind the times in laws of 200 years? Or they act as though they're above the law. Whatever the case is, it's been terrorism. We've been terrorized by these groups of people. And I'm not the only one who said it. So we have these networks of religions doing it to a lot of different people. You know what I mean? Yes, I have the right to own a car. I have the right to own a car. You know what I mean? They prevented me from working so that I lost my vehicle. Okay, and my credit was crystal clear. Like I said, when I get my credit report better be crystal clear. Crystal clear. Okay, because I'm not done until I'm satisfied with this. Meaning, I want my life back on track, and then I'm going to stop talking about these issues because I'm tired of talking about them myself. I don't find them interesting anymore. Actually, I like everything in my world. To me, is some sort of emotional upset or disturbance. That's how I feel, and the reason why I feel this way is because, nobody asked for the competition, and the arrogance of white nationalist people as well as the Mormon people. Right? Number one, to expect us to. Why would we want to worship in your church, other than if you're trying to force us to? Because we honestly aren't going to sit here and believe that you're supposed to be superior. You honestly think I'm supposed to sit here and take instructions? And I'm not trying to create a racial issue, okay? Because I'm not a racist person. I'm just saying is when you think about this, it doesn't make sense that I would follow something like that. It's illogical. You're basically saying I'm supposed to accept an inferior position. I'm just supposed to accept that willy-nilly. Think about that, okay? What else am I thinking about? Okay, yes, they do regret, and people do acknowledge me as a savior. Okay, but anyway, like I said, to me, it was unnecessary. All that stuff about, bringing these burden babies around and then looking at one as a savior, looking at these different bloodlines and all this other stuff. I don't know what else to tell you. I honestly, I'm not comfortable with any of it. I don't believe in that process, and I think it was just absolutely evil, and it's a moral stain on the church. It is a moral stain on the church. Just because I understand that it was, a white nationalist Nazi type interest, as far as like bringing kids over here and all this other stuff. But the church is something that they kept it quiet. They allowed this to happen, right? So yeah, Christianity to me is very dark to me. It's very, very dark to me. I know I'm not comfortable with it. What else do I want to talk about? Yes, I know about the suicides. There's a lot of people who are doing this. I would like to get off the subject, and get into my projects more. And that's pretty much all I have. I have come to understand that the only thing I care about now is my world. That's it. That's it. You know what I mean? What goes on in the work sector, I have no idea. Like I said, I am going to be calling people. I'm not really excited about it. The reason why I'm not excited about it is because, you know, you know what I hate? I hate talking to these people that I know were a part of the plot. And I've lost respect for them. Okay? I've lost respect for them. And, I just feel like, ew. That's how I feel about them. But it's still at the same time, do I believe that people owe me money? Yes, I do. I do believe that they do. And then, as far as me getting to Lancaster and working, whatever happens, happens. I'm hoping that happens. You know what I mean? Because I would rather just kind of like live out the rest of my years in Lancaster instead of Bakersfield. That would be better for me. I do get the feeling that people are looking forward to seeing my third quarter newsletter. I'm like on page 25 on my newsletter. I know newsletters are supposed to be like anywhere from 3 to 8 pages, but I tend to write a lot. And, I try to express, things that I usually don't get to cover on my videos, or at least explain it a little bit more, okay? I know that I had made reference to people communicating with me on how to advertise in my newsletter. And I do believe that the church has played an active role in preventing people from communicating with me. And I would like to call out to Donald Trump. And I understand Trump's got a lot on his plate about the whole issue of Iran and Iraq. But I'm tired of the churches acting as if I don't exist and preventing me from having a life outside of the bubble that they created for me. It is wrong, okay? It's wrong, okay? Because what they're trying to do by them I want people to pay attention. I want people to pay attention, okay? Because the actions that the church is doing still shows that they have some sort of animosity to me. I want all of this issues to get cleared up, okay? Now, like I said, I think it's really, I don't believe that churches should be standing. I really think the churches should be gone. You know what I mean? They've proven themselves to be wicked. They've already proven themselves to be wicked. And I get the feeling there's a lot of people arguing. Mind you, like I said, no one can say that they can blame me for anyone. They cannot blame me for this at all. Now, I do get the feeling something about Elon Musk. And I do get the feeling, I don't know why, but I get the intuitive message that the Bakersfield community wants me to make money. Like they're wishing me well, that I could make money. Maybe it's because they would prefer me to go to Lancaster as well. I do as well. Okay, I do. I want to go to Lancaster. I also get the intuitive message that people are supporting me having a relationship with Elon Musk. Like I said, you know what? I'm a little bit hesitant. I do want to get to know Elon. I do want to spend time with Elon. But like I said, Elon has only known bad people. He has only known people who have been brainwashed. Okay? Elon Musk, and I would say Elon Musk, as well as his wives and his children, are born under a system that I'm not comfortable with. Okay? I'm not comfortable with it. Now, I want to get to know Elon. I do. But I also understand that he may do something or say something that he might be out of line at times. And I want to make sure that we understand each other. I got this intuitive message about the way that I dress, okay? I will never change the way that I live my life for anyone. For anyone. Okay, I do not love anyone. This is something that people need to understand. Oh, they might say, oh, you could come to love Elon. I only love people who support me and are protective and support my emotional well-being, okay? I am not going to fall in love with somebody who's directly opposed to that. It doesn't make sense. And see, this is the limited understanding of people who do not have a formalized education when it comes to human behavior. Human behavior. Okay, they'll send people into your life. Elon comes into my life for the simple fact that they want to change me. I know that some of these people bet money on my life, I believe, or something like that. Well, guess what? If that's the case, then you guys can just die. Because I'm not changing anything in my life for anybody. I did get the intuitive message. Yes, the church is, okay, about the data banks and all that other stuff. And that's it. Like I said, I do not want people using people in my life for their agenda. Okay, I do not want that in my life. So if the only reason why Elon Musk was going to come into my life was some sort of form of indoctrination, good luck to you, Elon. I wish you well. I really do. Okay, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. See, people should have left me alone. This is their big mistake, and I think that this issue is important. You know why? Because things need to change when it comes to the kind of domination that your world domination. Let me ask you this: do you enjoy causing misery? Because I'm going to tell you what, I would not want to be in a relationship if it had any sort of ties with the church. Okay, I make it a point not to have that in my life. You know why? Because I don't believe relationships flourish with it. I don't believe they really flourish without it either. I mean, relationships can only go for so long. But at the same time, it's like when you have the church in it, it's a nightmare. Okay, now I do get the intuitive message that people are taking my conventional versus autodidact education thing very seriously, and like I said, I am taking it seriously too. I would say the moral reset is an important project of mine, as well as the construction or the redesign of the school system. Okay, but I do believe that the school system, as well as things like relating to employment law, have been eliminated because of the Christian agenda, which you can see this in things like the corporations. Like, what I believe Siobhan Zillis is, how she ended up having children, as that was contingent upon her job, her form of employment. That's illegal. Okay, and of course, there's something that went on that I didn't know about. Like, for example, there could have been some sort of understanding that she was going to do all this, and she was a part of the actual formulation of what she ended up doing. That could be different, okay? But if she was somebody who was lured into this place of employment for, through coercion or something like that, well, then that's something else you have to consider. Now, according from what I understand, people would like me to be friends with Elon Musk. As long as there's no strings attached to it, then we can be friends. We can be friends, okay? But if there's some sort of, I do not ever want any Mormon influence in my life or any of those religious influences in my life. It has caused serious damage, okay? And see, what I don't like about the people that it took them a long time to understand is that I mean it. I mean it. Like, I think people like Rex Laverne and stuff like that, they always say, oh, most people do give in. They give in. Most people who are trafficked, they give in. You know why? Because they don't understand. They're just like, well, I'll do it. I'll convert, okay? The thing is, I have a right not to convert, which I said this before, okay? But the way I look at people and the way I see things, you know how I look at things? I look at everyone as a member of the Walking Dead. Like, they have been affected by this disease called corrupt Christianity. And I'm somebody who's off to themselves, looking at everybody else, making sure I don't ever come in contact with it. I do not want to come in contact with it, okay? Because I understand what these people are capable of. Okay, these people were willing to commit murder, okay, because of these people. And yes, I know people are really discussing their disdain for religion right now, okay? Now people are starting to open up their eyes a little bit. Okay, but unfortunately, it's a little too late. So I'm concerned about that. I don't feel comfortable, okay? I do know something about the Pope. I had some sort of mention about the Pope. The Pope understands, I didn't do anything wrong. Also, something about employment arrangement and my understanding of psychology, what psychology, the study of psychology, and what has been watered down through the new school system and what it does not get talked about for the sake of benefiting the church. So when you think about omitting certain things that relate to psychology in forms of education, right, then that means that a lot of people are going to do things to other individuals that are actually going to cause them a lot of harm, and they are not going to know about it. So therefore, the education is not complete. The education, and that goes for laws as well. You know what I mean? If we're sitting here bringing people into employment places so that it can be cloned or creating families or something along those lines, then something is wrong here. Okay, and like I said, if you guys are a separate institution that specifically, is trying to draw in particular people from religion, a religion that they have already consented to, and it's completely understood that this is what they're in for, then I suppose that's your choice, okay? But when it comes to, people who are just like looking for jobs on Indeed.com, or they somehow get lured into things like that, that's a problem. That's a huge problem. So I do get the intuitive message that people are actually wanting me to create the New Earth movement. Okay. This is going to affect the churches. Why? Because the churches are no longer going to be able to dominate people in the manner that they have. Okay. Because it's going to be run on secular law. And if you choose to be a part of that religion, then you can choose to adhere to those laws and those rules. I mean, those doctrines, okay? But everyone else, they can walk, they can come and go as they please. And that's the way it's supposed to be. And that's the way it should have been. That legally, this is how it's supposed to be, according to the United States of America. And I do get the intuitive message that, you know, something about my father, they believe that my life is peaceful and that they believe that this issue has been resolved, but they do understand that I beat them on their stupid competition about, you know, college students versus autodidacts. And the reason why is because I have studied both sides of the information. Like when it comes to law and psychology, they're pretty much, I've read, okay, obviously more than they have. Why? Because a lot of the information that people like, I don't know, maybe people who've gone to BYU or something, they're only reading limited amounts of it because their church is preventing them from knowing certain things. Okay, what other message that I'm getting? Okay, so people think that I should send out my information, that I will be protected, my reputation and my finances will be protected as I go throughout my journey in life. I am no longer going to be pressured to be married. Thank you. Okay, and that's it. And you know, it's been a very draining time period for me, but it's been very eye-opening. Okay, and I understand that I believe in the way that I see things. Okay, I think that I'm very serious about the way that I see things. Like I said, you know, I'm somebody who I'm a researcher. I do write, and I have, you know, conducted social studies on people for at least over 30 years. Okay, I've been doing it since I was a kid, but actually started documenting these things since I've been working, like my constant workflow. So I understand people. I understand people, and I understand laws, and I understand all of these sort of things. And I do know that when I left Murray Family Farms, there was a huge attack on me. See, what people wanted to think and see was a black person. They just thought I was black, therefore I didn't understand. I don't think these people understood who the Egyptians were. I don't think they understood who Egyptians were. Egyptians, they may, because especially people of the younger generations, like maybe Siobhan thought I was stupid because, you know, therefore I don't go to college. I didn't go to Yale College, so therefore, and then the fact that I wore nice clothes, she thought that I was not an intelligent person. See, obviously, she has been indoctrinated. She's been indoctrinated to believe things that are not true, okay? And then also, Egyptians are considered a little bit different than black people. I mean, we're black, okay, but we come from a different part of Africa, okay? And they were looked upon as civilized and advanced beings, okay, that white people seriously did admire, okay? So this was a campaign smear to make me look bad. What else? I think that's it, you know? Like I said, it has been extremely traumatizing for me. I'm hoping that the New Earth, meaning like, you know, me working towards completing my projects, hopefully they'll get, I know when I try to meditate on me, you know, sending my information to the state, I get this fact or this feeling that there's a lot of argument going on about it, but they feel miserable. The people, my perps were miserable, but they really don't, I don't feel as though they can do anything about it. That might be because Donald Trump has put something in place, hopefully. Okay, hopefully. And like I said, I could submit it, and they could play their games all they want to. They could sit here and act like, oh, we didn't see it, we didn't read it, and you can completely, you know, disregard it if you want to. But the fact is I'm going to live that way. You know why? Because you know why I came out of this issue unscathed is because I followed the right path. That's why. That's why. For everything that these people wanted to throw to me, okay, I had an answer for it. And I stuck with laws, and I stuck with psychology, okay? Meanwhile, these people made up things willy-nilly, including their doctrine, right? Which made no sense in the first place because we had all these, what do you call it, interdenomination type things. My point is that this is the best way to live your life, okay? And I do get the feeling that my rights are respected. I'm very grateful for it, okay? So anyway, I'm going to wrap up this video. I'm getting emotional because I'm so tired of thinking about this issue, okay? And I feel as though it has limited my enjoyment of life, okay? It has limited my enjoyment of life. And I would like to get off to be able to live on a nice area in Lancaster, find like a little apartment or something, and live in a solitude way, very quiet and peaceful for the rest of my life. And I honestly will say that I choose to be very guarded about who gets to come into my life. Okay, I'm very, very unhappy with what the church caused. Okay, as far as me being having any issues relating to shadow banning, I'm going to ask Donald Trump to fix that issue. Okay, the message I keep getting is about me beating out college students, but see, and something about jobs being arranged for me. If there's a job arranged for me in Lancaster, it's going to be a while before I can collect those funds. Okay, like I said, unless of course the people who did me wrong could sit here and do some advocating, making sure that people will actively participate and buy from me in a rapid speed way. At this point, like I said, you can't sit here and find me a job and expect that job to be open for a long period of time. And there's only so much calling I can do. I don't have the equipment to call. I can call my phone, but to really effectively do telemarketing, you should have one of those headpieces to where you can hang up and just keep dialing. After you hang up, keep dialing. I understand how that works, okay? But see, these people create problems for you, and then you're left to figure it out. Had I been in a network that was professional, okay, I would not have done this because I would have consistent work. I would have not ever had to experience moments of unemployment and had sort of setbacks to be in a situation without a vehicle. These people left me without a vehicle. They left me without the resources that I need in order to survive. Okay, so once again, I'm dealing with issues that I shouldn't be dealing with. Okay, so hopefully, my project will help me get home to Lancaster. This is something that's really important for me. And we'll see how the rest of my life goes. You know what I mean? I do expect to have a better life, and hopefully, I'll meet people that I can really relate to. Okay, and hopefully, meet other people who are not associated or try to force me into church associations, okay? I'm talking about people who are open-minded. I'm talking about even atheists, okay? I'm even interested in talking to atheist people, having them a part of my association. One thing I cannot deal with is that mind control, that blind mindset, okay? Because it does give off the feeling of me being very much like, somebody who appears on that show, The Walking Dead, where all these people are like zombies and I don't want to be around them because they only cause me trauma. And I will say that I'm still dealing with trauma as a result of their evil plot. So anyway, I think that's all I really wanted to say. I'm going to wrap up this video and I will be back with another video sometime later. Take care. Bye-bye.